I am in the final stretch of my read-through, my first time read-through of Dragon Ball Z, and I'm loving this series so much more than I ever expected to going into it. So it's break week, and next break week, we'll dive into discussing Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z. I'll have a video dedicated to it because by then I'll be done with the series. But I'm not done with it yet. So this break week, what I'm doing is a tier list of all the manga series that I've read so far. Why would you do that, Murph? People always get mad at tier lists because I get recommendations all the time. Thank you. I appreciate you. And it's introduced me to a load of really amazing series. But because not every single series that I have read gets a dedicated video, oftentimes people ask me to read series that I've already read and I've already discussed elsewhere. So I have a list of 21 series, manga series, that I have either read all the way to being caught up or completing, or that I've DNF'd. I have my DNFs on here as well. This tier list is obviously going to be based solely off of my own subjective experience and preferences. This is just an idea of how I felt about these series. And if you make it all the way to the end of the video, then you unlock the right to recommend me a series in the comments based off of what you think I would like. There's no way of me checking to make sure you did the required homework to get the prize, but you know, honor system or whatever. Okay, so here's my tier list. I have no idea why it oriented some of these images the way that it did, but I thought it was funny, so I didn't try to troubleshoot. It did randomize them once I got them all plugged in here, so they're in no particular order. And the first one it randomized me with is Ascendance of a Bookworm. So Ascendance of a Bookworm is, I believe it's an Isekai, isn't it? If it is, it's my first Isekai. Also, if you're finding me through this video, forgive my lack of knowledge. I'm still relatively new to being a manga nerd. So I've only read part 1 of Ascendance of a Bookworm, and I love it. I didn't love it initially, but oh, did it win my heart. So this follows a girl who loves books and loves reading more than life itself, and then her books fall on her and she dies. And then her soul is transported to a new world where there are no books, or rather, books are for the nobles and the elite and the rich and not for peasants like her. It's very undeveloped. It's a lot of like hard winters, working hard to be able to survive, living with a lot less than what she was accustomed to. So it's a lot of, I want to learn how to make books because I love books and I love reading and I want to bring this into this world and I want to make it accessible to more people. But it's also a lot about survival and about the very simple things that they have to do to be able to just make it through the winter, but also learning new skills and bringing new inventions into this world because she has knowledge from her previous life. And it's also her growing and learning and developing these connections to the people around her. And again, it started out a little bit rough to me because Mine, that's the main character's name, came off as very, very emotionally immature. And I still think that she is emotionally immature sometimes, but there's also just, she's so charming. Again, I've only read part 1 so far, so this is just for part 1, but I would, should it be an A or a B? I think I would give it an A. I do. By the end of part 1, I was so smitten with this story and the characters. Now, the way part 1 ended, the direction it's going in, I'm a little bit unsure about. So the series may continue to be great for me, or I may drop off of it, but at least part 1, I loved. Mermaid Saga is only 2 volumes, and I picked this up on a whim at the bookstore because I love mermaids, and a mermaid manga seemed like a good time. I guess I could be holding these up to show you, but I feel like putting them on the screen is gonna just work out better. But Mermaid Saga, it's only 2 volumes. And in this series, if you eat mermaid flesh, you gain immortality. So it's a collection. It follows multiple characters, and it's a lot of different people's stories. Some people who accidentally ate of mermaid flesh, some people who killed, like aggressively sought it out, some people who are being hunted down for it, and generally I thought it was fine. I don't have really strong feelings about this. It was good. I read both of these in a week, and it was while I was at the beach, so it was on theme, and yeah, it was fine. It's not one that stuck with me very much, and I feel like it should stick with me more because I love mermaids so much, but you know, it was fine. Next up is Vinland Saga. It's there. I don't feel like pulling these off my shelves. Do you care? Does it matter to you? By the way, if you want further thoughts on anything that I talk about, every series that I read, I talk about somewhere in a video. There's no manga series that I've read that has just not been mentioned somewhere in a video somewhere. So there is a spreadsheet linked in my description that you can go to, and you can actually search the title and it'll pull up the videos that are attached to that title. Thank you, Lynn, for keeping up with that for me. So that is in the description of this video. If there's any series on here that you're like, ooh, I want to hear her talk about it more, I probably have talked about it a lot. Hey Murphy, your taste really sucks. You haven't even let me, I'm not even done. I don't care. But you know what doesn't suck? Today's sponsor, Factor. Today's sponsor, Factor. Factor makes your nutrition goals easier than ever by delivering fresh, never frozen, dietitian-approved meals right to your doorstep. They have a team of gourmet chefs that create every meal using only ingredients with integrity to help you feel your best all day long. With Factor, you skip that extra trip to the grocery store, the chopping, prepping, cleaning up, while still getting the flavor and nutritional quality that you need. Factor's fresh, never frozen meals are ready in just 2 minutes, and all you have to do is heat and enjoy. We love Factor because we usually just grab something quick for lunch, which doesn't always mean that we make the healthiest choices, but Factor is so quick and it's still packed with so much flavor. Today I ate the vegan mushroom marsala and I had it with tortilla chips, and Corey had the loaded bacon and spinach shredded chicken. I've never had a Factor meal that I haven't enjoyed. They're so tasty and filling. But on top of their meals, they also have 45 plus add-ons, from breakfast items like apple cinnamon pancakes, bacon and cheddar egg bites, and potato bacon and egg breakfast skillet, or you can try their beverage options like their cold pressed juices, shakes, and smoothies. And they also offer gourmet plus meals as part of their weekly options, which means that you can get a little gourmet with your meal plan whenever you're craving something special. And on the side of your meals, you get produce to perfectly complement your protein. So head over to factor75.com or use the link in my description and use the code MurphyNapier50 to get 50% off your first Factor box. Thank you, Factor, for sponsoring this video, and thank you to you for checking them out. So Vinland Saga, I adore this series. It starts off being a revenge plot for this boy who lost his father and then dedicates his life to killing the man who killed his father. And it ends up being a war story. It ends up being a story that is this child's quest for revenge, but he completely loses himself and loses his identity and doesn't even know who he is apart from this single goal. And it's him learning to fight, but also learning himself. It's his story taking a lot of turns that he didn't expect it to go in, and having to be humbled and having to find himself, but also having to confront what he's done in his quest for revenge and how he's affected lives, just like his life, just like his own life was affected when he was a child. We bring in several characters that have the same theme of trying to break free of the chains that someone else has put on you. For Thorfinn, the child, the chains were coming from the man who killed his father. But you will also see characters who are chained because of their role in this society, or because of harm that someone else has committed against their family, or because of expectations put on them by their families, or because of being enslaved by someone else. We see many side characters that all have such strong roles in the story and in Thorfinn's life, but it's also the chains that bind them and finding freedom from those as well, either physically or internally. And Thorfinn's story has a lot of action. There's a lot of big war scenes. Thorfinn's a very skilled fighter, so we get to watch him do some really cool stuff. But really, it's a story of redemption, and it's a story of finding freedom, and it's a story of forgiving yourself. And wow, I really, really loved this series. It's an S tier for me, for sure. It's not complete, but what I've read, it's S. It's not without complaint from me, but it's an S. Spy Family 2 is an S. I love, oh, it's still being wonky. Look at this. Why does it, I love it. Spy Family 2 is an S. I am caught up with Spy Family, with all of the published manga, there are single chapters that I haven't read, but I don't read week to week for any series except for One Piece. I usually let a volume or two build up and then read those and then move on to something else. So Spy Family, for all that's published, I am caught up, and I love this series so much. It follows Lloyd, who is a spy, and because plot dictates, he has to have a fake wife and a fake child in order to complete a mission. And so he teams up with Yor, who is an assassin, but Floyd and Yor don't know each other's professions. They both think that they're normal people, and they have this marriage of convenience, and they adopt this daughter of convenience who's the star, and her name is Anya. And nobody knows, these two don't know each other's professions, but Anya knows it all because she's a telepath and she can read their minds. But she's also an adorable, innocent, wonderful child who is very impressed by their skill, or very, shocked by Yor's violent thoughts at times. It's slice of life, and it's so sweet and so wholesome watching this family try really hard to blend well and to do right by each other, but also have their separate shenanigans to go off of. And Anya, the little girl, trying so hard, just giving her darndest. She's doing her all. Both Lloyd and Yor are very skilled, and Anya simply is not. But she really, really tries, and I love her for it. And she's weird, and she's so impressed. She's oftentimes just sitting in the corner watching her parents go off, and she's just like, so cool. And I think so too. I think so too, Anya. I too am watching these two going, you guys are so cool. So it's slice of life, but then they also have their separate missions that add some plot structure, and they have some really emotional beats to it as well. It's kind of just the perfect mix of sweet and wholesome, really cool action, emotional beats, and I don't know, it kind of just does it all right. Spy Family, I wouldn't think that slice of life, wholesome, sweet. In fact, I know slice of life, wholesome, sweet is not my jam, but Spy Family is perfect. Uzumaki. Ooh, where would I put? I think Uzumaki might be S tier too. Just it's going to be at the back half of S tier. But I think it is. I really loved this bind up. Uzumaki follows a town that is plagued by spirals. If you see the spirals, you become obsessed with them. You develop this obsession where you can't get them out of your mind, and you can't stop seeing them everywhere until the spiral overtakes you. And it's a collection of people within this town seeing how the spiral overtakes them. And by the end of the collection, you get to kind of this overarching, it brings it all together. I thought it was really satisfying, and I tend to have an obsessive personality. I think that's probably common for YouTubers. So I loved how Uzumaki made me start noticing spirals everywhere and become a little bit obsessive about them. That was really fun. It like messed me up for about a month. Then we have Hunter x Hunter. Wow, this is kind of front loaded with a lot of S tiers, isn't it? Hunter x Hunter. Nope, we're gonna, hold on. Cool it! Cool it! Wow. There we go. Hunter x Hunter, actually I just fought for it to be in that spot, but is it there? It might, it's so hard because the Chimera Ant arc is at the front of S tier, but Hunter x Hunter as a whole, is it? Oh no, this is actually, okay, this is my first conundrum. This is actually, I think I'm gonna started that sentence, but I didn't know how to finish it. I was just kind of hoping I would make a decision, but I didn't. Oh, wow, this is a real challenge. I think I'll leave it here. I'll leave it here because Chimera Ant goes at the front, but the series as a whole, I'll put Vinland Saga ahead of just like the income. That's a challenge. We'll say they're equal. We'll say they're on even playing field. So Hunter x Hunter has a deceptively charming start to it where you think it's this sweet, wholesome, lovely story about a young boy whose father has gone off to be a hunter. He's one of the elite and now gone. I'm out of practice from saying his name now. Now he is off to try to get his hunter's license too, to understand what it was that was so important to his dad and to just kind of like explore the wonders of being in this world and and pursuing the same dreams that his dad had and maybe get to see his dad someday. There's some killing, there's a few competitions, there's some death, there's some really twisted characters, but it all has this kind of tint of, this is nice. And it's not a series that has this linear, but then it gets darker, or this linear and then this character has this arc. It feels so real life in that it feels like the characters are in this world, this big, expansive world. You'll never stop exploring this world if you just keep walking. It will never end. But each arc has its own genre almost, where you have battle arenas, you have video game arcs, you have close, intimate family sagas, you have epic scale wars. Each arc is doing something really different with the same core magic system, but the magic system gets used in a unique way for each arc, but also the world just kind of expands and each thing builds on the next. But these characters feel like characters that are in a world and are responding to it, rather than characters who have a story to tell and the world works around them. This world is what it is, and the characters are journeying through it, and they're being changed by the experiences they're having. And it's not this linear arc. It's a very human one, where sometimes they're making decisions that are noble, sometimes they're making decisions that are selfish, sometimes they're manipulating the people that they love the most, sometimes they're going to dark places, and sometimes they're sacrificing everything for one another. It's just, I love it. I love Hunter. Without the Chimera Ant arc, Hunter x Hunter is an S-tier story for me. With Chimera Ant, Hunter x Hunter is one of the best stories, because Chimera Ant arc affected me in a way that no other series has. To Your Eternity, I'm actively reading this. I will see it through to the end, but I'm not done with it yet. So it's kind of unsatisfying to have it on this tier list, but here I am. I have it on the tier list. It is a B for me right now. I'm 7 volumes in. I think that, so this follows a being named Fushi, who was created and then put on Earth to observe it. At least I think. Again, I'm not done with it. And along the way, he meets people. He has to kind of face the reality of mortality and of loss while his life continues on. And there's a lot of grief. There's a lot of growth. There's a lot of him kind of gaining his own humanity. And, you know, I'm not obsessed with it yet. It is good. I can say that for sure. But I'm still kind of waiting to see fully what it does. Editing Murphy here to insert 2 series that I forgot about because I'm a dummy. I'm actively reading The Promised Neverland as well, which is why I'm inserting it here. I'm only on arc 2, so I'm really early on, but I think I would put it in an A tier at this point. Again, I'm very early with the series, so it could go up, it could go down, it could stay right here, but it's such a strong start. An orphanage following children who are a family to one another, love each other so much, but then realize that it's actually really sinister and they need to get out now. Really, really strong start. Very much enjoying it. And then I also forgot about Death Note. This is one of the first series that I ever read, so it's just so far back in my memory, but I was obsessed with this series. Well, with the first half of this series when I read it the first time, and then the second half, I actually didn't even finish it because I just wasn't into it and I wasn't used to manga yet, and I wasn't a manga reader yet, but I do want to finish it eventually. I want to go back and reread it and finish it, but as of right now, I'm actually going to put it in B, which seems really unfair for a DNF, but I just loved that first half so much that this somehow feels right to me. Tomie, this is another Junji Ito. I think this is his next most popular after Uzumaki, and it's my next favorite after Uzumaki that I've read. This one follows the femme fatale kind of character. I think she's so beautiful that people are entranced by her and they just like become obsessed with her to the point of usually killing her. And then she comes back and I think she like tries to kill them in return, maybe, because she too is immortal and there just keeps being more of her. It's been a bit since I've read that one, but I very much enjoyed it. Not as much as Uzumaki, but it was still a great read. Ah, shucks. Okay, next we have The Climber. So this one unfortunately didn't work for me. I think I got 8 volumes into this before I didn't finish reading it. This was recommended to me because I am a rock climber. I've been rock climbing since I was 10, I think is when my dad started taking me climbing with him. And I love it. I adore rock climbing. And a friend of mine who knows that I'm a climber told me, you're gonna love this series because of how rock climbing is written. And he was absolutely right. I loved this series because of how rock climbing was written. I loved the way the mangaka depicted the connection with the rock that a climber feels, where it's just like you start climbing and it's like everything changes. There's a pull to it. There's a different feeling to the satisfaction of growing and learning and getting stronger, and that connection that you feel with your climb. It was depicted so well, and the artwork in this series is phenomenal. There are certain full spreads that I would put on my wall. But there were also a lot of things that didn't work for me in this series. There were a lot of off-the-wall things that I didn't get, and maybe that's because I was still and am still relatively new to manga, so maybe there were some more minutia things that it was just too early in my manga reading journey to like fully understand what was going on. It's also a story about a person who cares so much about climbing, but that has a lot of distractions, and it's him trying to get past those distractions and fully commit to this thing that he wants to give his all to. And some of the distractions, I just didn't like the way it was handled. Plus, if I'm not mistaken, which I very well could be, I know that this manga has changed hands multiple times. I think it had 3 different authors, 3 different mangaka in just the first 8 volumes that I read, and that shifting of authorship, that shifting of people handling the story was very apparent to me. I could feel that the direction of the story and the goal just like it kept kind of shifting around. So I don't know. I know the fans of the series are very, very loyal, and it was a real big bummer for people when I dropped it. But again, this is not a reflection of the quality of the story. This is a reflection of my experience with it, and it didn't work for me. Oh, good, more negativity. Oh, great. I love how this has been randomized. I don't like, okay, it's fine. Next up is Fruits Basket. I think I got 10 to 12 to 14 volumes into this. I read a good chunk of it before I finally gave up. And I absolutely loved the beginning of it. And then as it progressed and as we got more characters and introduced more trauma, I just got really fatigued. So Fruits Basket follows Honda. Yeah, Honda. And she's introduced to this Zodiac family, which is this large family of people who are under the Zodiac curse. I really hope I'm remembering all this correctly. So with this curse, if you hug someone of the opposite gender, you turn into an animal, and you have a specific animal. And it's a curse that they try to keep hidden from people, but Honda is in on the secret because she's the main character. Yeah, because she hugged someone and she found out. So at first, I loved it because it was very sweet. I really, really love the beginnings of the romance, even though it's extremely heavy on the will they, won't they. Like, so heavy, maybe the heaviest will they, won't they story I've ever read. But it was still sweet, and I really liked the chemistry. And they were all kind of dealing with their own stuff. Each character had something that they were trying to work through and trying to work past and be able to live through. And they were really leaning on each other to sort through their own burdens and wanting to be there for one another. And it was just a very sweet, compelling story. But as I said, as this is a very large family, and as more family members just kept getting introduced and more trauma kept getting introduced, because they've all got trauma for specific reasons. There's a lot going on here. I just got really fatigued by all the trauma. I just got really fatigued. It seemed like in every volume, in every chapter, there was more trauma being unpacked, and I just I don't know, it was bumming me out. I wasn't enjoying it anymore. I was not having fun. And again, that's not a reflection of the story. It's a well done story. I just personally was not vibing with it. So sadly, it didn't work for me. I'm sorry. Okay, happier times. Let's talk about Dragon Ball. So Dragon Ball, I actually picked this up just for the sake of, I'm a new manga fan. Everybody that has read manga and has grown up with it knows Dragon Ball. And all the time when I'm hanging out with other manga nerds, they talk about Dragon Ball. They're just like casually, you know, like this that happened, like that thing that happened. And I'm just like, I don't know what you're talking about. And so I decided to read Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z because I just wanted to be in on the conversation. I just wanted to be in the loop. I've done this with many novels in my life as well, where if something is referenced, then I'm like, okay, I need to be in on that conversation. What are you talking about? I'm gonna read that book. It's just who I am. So I wanted to read this so that I could actually engage in conversations when it comes up. And I didn't expect to love it. So I know a lot of people are all the time telling me Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z aren't actually separate. They never meant to be separated, but they were. And frankly, I don't understand why people clarify that so much, because it seems like they should be. They're very different. So starting with Dragon Ball, I have read all of the Dragon Ball volumes and I loved it. It has some glaring flaws. I will throw that out there, but I loved it so much. The absurdist nature of it, the kid who is just on an adventure to explore this world and to find the Dragon Balls and the friends he collects along the way and the teamwork that they have, this absurdist nature of him being just the best fighter, just so ridiculously overpowered in this world just because he has this one weakness, this one thing that can take him out, but then he just, you know, learns to overcome it just like that. And then it's just like, okay, so you're just amazing then? It's like, it's such a lighthearted, fun adventure with the most goofy humor. And I love absurdist fiction. So I love absurdist fiction. I love adventure stories, and I love gotta collect them all, gotta catch them all kind of plot lines. So near everything about this was just perfect to me. I loved it. I actually, I know this is dumb, but I don't really care. Dragon Ball is S tier to me. I'm sorry, it just is. And so many people told me, I get why you're reading this, but I just don't think you're gonna like it that much. It's one of those things that you have to grow up with and you have to have a nostalgia attached to it to like it. I just think that's not true. I just think that's wrong. I mean, maybe, I'm not saying it's not true I'm sure there are people that have tried it later in life and been like, what is this? But it's a good story. I don't care. It's a good story. And now I'm in Dragon Ball Z, and admittedly, the shift when I switched to Dragon Ball Z, at first I was like, okay, I'm just gonna go with it. I'm gonna try to appreciate it for what it is. But it was a slow start for me because it's a big shift, and it's a lot more battle focused, and it's a lot more power focused, and it's a lot more focused on like getting stronger all the time. And that just isn't really the type of reader that I am. But it was during the Frieza saga and the Seinen saga, that whole section, that I'm so into this. It's ridiculous, actually. So I haven't finished Dragon Ball Z yet, but I'm just gonna go ahead and put it. Oh my golly, calm down, sir. I know you're super. Stop it. It's so Goku. That's so rude. Okay, anyway, as I said, next break week, you know, I do weekly chapter reviews for One Piece now. And so next break week, we'll dig into Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z. I'll talk about them. Spoiler, we'll get into it, and I'm very, very excited to do so. Yona of the Dawn. So Yona of the Dawn, again, was a really slow start for me. In the beginning, I actually wanted to drop it pretty quick so it's a story of a princess. There's a coup, and she and her bodyguard, whose name is Hawk. Yona and her bodyguard, Hawk, go on the run. And, you know, she's a spoiled brat. She's a 16-year-old, very privileged, very sheltered, pampered little kid who doesn't know anything. And it's done that way on purpose, and it's very clear to the reader to me that, I mean, it's obvious that she's going to go through a character arc and she's intentionally insufferable at the beginning, but I didn't like her. I didn't like Hawk. We're already in a genre that I have not had good luck with, shoujo. And I wanted to drop it, but the fans, the people, I was buddy reading it on my Patreon, convinced me, no, you just gotta give it some time. And boy, am I glad they did. It took like 10 volumes before I got hooked, but once I got hooked, oh, I loved this story. I'm gonna put it at the top of A, but by the time the series completes, it might be an S tier series. Yona's arc as an individual has been one of my favorite single main character arcs that I've watched. She has become such a strong woman, such a powerful, independent, but also willing to take on help around every corner. Someone who has developed a core group of friends that would give anything for her, and she would give anything to them. She's willing to accept their help, but she's also so willing to stand on her own. And this group, this happy, hungry bunch, are the most lovely found family between their little scuffles, because they don't always work perfectly together, but also their brotherhood, the family that they have developed among them. And then the side characters, they all have their own stories. They all have their own past. They all have their own stories of what got them here and goals of the future. And one character in particular, Zeno, Zeno and Yona are the two reasons why I hesitate to put this series in A, and I'm kind of tipping towards S, but it's A for now. This series really shocked me because in the beginning I was so not into it, but the extreme pendulum swing that the series has taken to where I'm so invested. I've cried over this series multiple times, mostly for Zeno, and I just love these characters so much. The action in this story is written impeccably. It's drawn so beautifully. There's tension despite there's certain characters that I know I'm not gonna lose, but even still, when the battles come and when someone's captured or when someone's harmed, I feel it. She finds a way, the mangaka finds a way to make it hurt, despite the fact that maybe some characters are probably not gonna die, at least yet. Honestly, it's top of A. I won't be surprised if it's in S tier by the time the series is done. And I think that that's huge because this series is so outside of my comfort zone. It's so outside of the kind of series that I typically gravitate towards, yet it's just that good. Okay, next up we have Vagabond. I'm gonna put it here. Vagabond, Vinland Saga, and Hunter x Hunter are all kind of on the same level to me, but Vagabond, I was thinking about this as I was getting ready to film. Vagabond just barely edges it out, but really all three of them are side by side. This follows Musashi, who is a samurai who is determined to be the strongest under the sun. He wants to become the best samurai. He wants to challenge other samurais who are stronger than him. He wants to defeat them so that he can just continue rising in the ranks until he is standing alone at the top. This is a story that has a lot of action, samurai fights, but it also is very slow. And it's extremely introspective, and Musashi thinks his story is about him becoming the strongest samurai, but really his story is about becoming someone who releases the rage and releases the self-absorbed desires, releases his need to isolate in order to become the best, and instead becomes connected with people, with the fighting style, with the heavens and the earth. It's about flow, it's about introspection, it's about character growth, it's about learning how to become the greatest you can be, but not in the way that Musashi expected. And his sword brother, they're each other's sheaths. The character that comes in later in the story that ends up being a really significant part of Musashi's life, I love so much. He is everything that Musashi is trying to be, and these two learn so much from each other in a very unconventional way. And I don't know. The art in the story is incredible. The character arcs that these characters go on, the side characters that are introduced, and their stories that kind of come to the front as they are interacting with Musashi or with this other character. I just really got swept away in this story, and I love it. I just really, really love it. I've decided Hunter x Hunter. Oh my golly, I'm gonna put it right here. I've sat on it long enough. I feel right. That's how I'm gonna rank them. All my Vinland Saga fans just cried a little. I still love Vinland Saga. It's still S tier. Look at it. Look how high up it is. I Want to Eat Your Pancreas. Okay, this was a recent read for me. This is very short. It follows a girl named Sayona. I forgot her name. She has gotten the medical diagnosis that she has about a year left to live. So she's living with terminal illness, and she makes a friend who finds out about her terminal illness, and no one else knows outside of her family. And so he now has to keep her secret. And her goal is just to make the most of this time that she has left. It's a story about learning from one another. It's a story about making the most of your life, but it's also a story showing that it doesn't matter how much time you have, you're still able to make such a great impact. And I really, really enjoyed this. Next is One Piece. Will it surprise you if I just go ahead and put it right at the top? One Piece is my one true love. It always will be. One Piece is such an incredible story about freedom, about fighting for others, about finding your adventure, found family. It does so much. It has this incredible, expansive world, and it has side characters whose stories are just as important, are given just as much care as the main characters. It's a living, breathing world that, much like Hunter x Hunter, if you never stop walking, you'll never stop exploring, but it still all ties together. I mean, you know I love this series. Monster, sadly, is another series that it's me, not you. This is one of those series where I'm on an island. It's so loved. It is such an extremely loved series, and it just wasn't mine. I did read it all the way through, and there's a lot that I did enjoy about it, but there's also a lot that just did not suit my personal taste, and it ended up not being the story for me. Again, this is not a reflection of its quality, just a reflection of my personal taste, and Monster wasn't the one for me, sadly. Full Metal Alchemist was, though. My goodness, why do you do this? I loved this series. Why is Uzumaki up so high? Let's just chuck you way back here. Okay, let's do this. Actually, no! Right here. Stop it. There. Al and Ed are the perfect brothers. Al, I would like to just protect with all my life. Two kids fighting to get their mother back using alchemy and trying to learn their skills, trying to get better in order to be able to accomplish this thing, and have to fight a lot of people along the way, have to overcome a lot of obstacles, and also learn a lot along the way. I'll say that. I couldn't think of a spoiler-free way of saying what I wanted to say. But this is another story with really, really, really deep themes, with a lot of questions asked, a lot of things kind of presented to the reader that's like, oh, man, I gotta think about that, as well as a very tightly paced, really fantastic story itself, characters that I love so much. This story absolutely stands up among the rest for me. I adored this. I loved this series. It's one that I will absolutely be rereading for sure. Okay, next we have two more Junji Itos. We have The Liminal Zone and Censor. I really just don't have a lot to say about these, honestly. I think that Junji Ito, they were good. I guess I'll put them in B. Yeah, no, actually, I think they're fine in C. I think Junji Ito has obviously some stories that I absolutely adore, but then there are other ones that I'm like, yeah, that was entertaining. I'm glad I read it. And that's kind of where those land. Finally, we have A Silent Voice. This was actually one of my first, this was one of the really, really early manga for me. So I can't even say exactly how I feel about it, but it was, at the time, one that really hit me hard. At the time that I read it, it affected me strongly. I didn't like the ending. I wish I had a different ending, but what it was doing with really digging into bullying and the effect it has on people and growth from that, I thought was really effective. So I really loved it at the time that I read it. But this was like, I read it when I was still like in Skypia for One Piece. It was way early in my manga journey. Anyway, there you go. My goal with this video was to give you a quick, here's what I've read, what I thought about it, and why. Now, if you've made it to the end of this video, you now earn 1 token to recommend me a series in the comments, because you have a pretty good idea of my taste, what works for me, what is kind of just, it's not really what I tend to go for, and then the ones that, like Yona, that are outside of my comfort zone, but still just really did it anyway. Holy cow, this video is long. Oh my gosh. Okay, well, okay, bye.